Hello and welcome back to another Instagram live. I don't even know what number we're on now. It feels like we've been doing these forever. But I think we're well into double digits, which is very, very exciting. Today I'm being joined by another fantastic guest. I realise I say this every week, but this one really is an absolute legend. And I'm so excited to chat with her and pick her brains all about her recent little bimble. I've just invited her to join now, so hopefully it won't be a second. Connecting. Hello!
Hello!
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very, very well. So I'm going to get straight in because, as you know, with these things, we only have 30 minutes and we've got loads and loads and loads to go through. Loads of questions that have come in for you as well, which is lovely. So first of all, tell us about you.
So I am an ultra runner who likes cake. That probably sums me up the best. Yeah, I do pretty much anything from 5k up to 150k. I love doing loads of different distances, and also I try and mix up my race calendar with doing races and fun little adventures. So this year's adventure was doing LEJOG, which was running the length of the UK, which, yeah, I say fun. It's fun now. I finished.
I had a conversation last week. I remember it going slightly differently.
Yeah.
But you are, you know, an absolutely incredible athlete. I, along with many, many others, followed your LEJOG adventure, and it was absolutely bonkers. Now, it was a pretty long run, which has now landed you a world record, which is absolutely incredible. For those guys that don't know perhaps quite what an incredible accomplishment this really was, tell us about the distance and how long it took you.
So it ended up being about 1,400 kilometers, and it took me 12 days, 30 minutes and 14 seconds. So yeah, I was running I think it averaged out to about 110 kilometers a day and running for about 17 hours a day from typically 5 a.m. in the morning till 10 o'clock every night. Long days on the road.
Pretty long days. And logistically, how did that work? You had a support crew. Were you sleeping in camper vans? Were you sleeping in hotels? Tell us a little bit about the logistics, because I think, especially with the current circumstances, so many people are thinking about planning their own adventures kind of in place of races that perhaps aren't going on towards the end of this year. So tell us a little bit how you kind of mapped it out logistically.
Yeah, so logistics and my crew were the biggest part of this, and especially with wanting to go for a record, I had to have a crew with me, and there is absolutely no way that I would have been able to do it without them. So those guys, they were up before me, they went to bed after me, they pretty much had a harder time. All I had to do was just to keep on running, where they had to go and find food and places to stay. And we did have a camper van, but it turned out that trying to get changed in the back of a camper van and with refilling the van up with water and all that sort of stuff was actually a bit of a pain. So we ended up saying if there was a B&B or a hotel within 15 minutes of the end of a day, then we would go there and sleep for the night. And it just made everyone's lives a lot easier, because you could jump in the shower. And for me, that I just felt like a normal human again. Well, kind of, but after a shower I was just okay. Watch the day away. Yeah.
I would do the same.
Yeah. And then the crew, basically every 10k they would go down the road and then find a little lay-by to stop in. Cool. And there they would swap my water bottles over for me, gave me more food, and then at 30, 60 and 90 kilometers during the day, we would stop for a little bit longer, just to this 30 and 90k, just to get off my feet. I would chuck my feet in a bucket of ice. And at lunchtime, we'd stop for about 45 minutes and have a massage and try and, sort my body out for the rest of the day. And yeah, it was intense, and everyone kind of had to be on the ball. And luckily I had the most amazing team, and everyone just pulled together to get me to the end.
Yeah, right. And it truly was amazing. It was an incredible feat. endurance, and I'm sure something that you will go on to talk about for forever and ever and ever, and we'll keep hold of the record for because it really was an incredible feat of endurance. Now, I feel like a little bit of a fraud because I picked your brains on a lot of this stuff last week when we were out plodding, but I know that I found it super interesting to hear a little bit more kind of detail about the challenge and why and what and how, like we've just talked about. So why this challenge? Why did you pick Land's End John O'Groats to kind of tackle as a world record?
Well, it was just at the beginning of lockdown, and literally like before my eyes I could see all these races like disappearing, and all of a sudden like my calendar was free and I was like, I just want to plan something. I've got all this time. So I started to look at some maps, and I guess like a seed had been planted at the back of my head from reading Mimi Anderson's book, who was a previous record holder. And at the time of reading it, I was like, this woman's mental. Like, why would you run that far? But clearly it sparked some sort of interest because I started to look at maps, and then the jog jumped out at me and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that one. And then everyone started to be like, okay, so you're going to do it for 2021, aren't you? Like, you need at least a year to plan for something like this. And I was like, yeah. And then after about a day, I was like, nah, I'm going to do it this year. For me, it was just, I knew I was fit. I was training really hard for Comrades Ultramarathon. And I was probably the fittest I've ever been earlier in the year. I knew it was a great time to ask people to help because no one had anything to do. So I thought it was a good time to plan something like this. And I was like, oh, you know, I've kind of done logistics and ops and planning as my job for probably the last 15 years. So I was like, I know how to plan stuff and make a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to go and do it this year. And the idea when I started plotting it, when I could see it going the whole way up a country, I was like, that just looks really cool. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose it.
As you do. So, you know, if anyone's bored, that's something to set your sights on. Obviously, it's important to mention, like you said, that you had an incredible level of base fitness and you were already in very good condition. So it allowed you to have that kind of short time frame to turn things around because you were already at a level where you could just kind of top up the training as opposed to have to kind of make any massive lifestyle changes. And it obviously worked out very well for you because you absolutely smashed it. So I asked these questions 1,000 times, but they are some of the ones that came in for us. So tell us about the toughest section.
Yeah, the toughest part was the last 24 hours. So I'd had some problems with my shin after about 9 days, which we thought was like a tendon injury just because you would. But it transpired that it was actually cellulitis, a skin infection. But because we thought it was a shin injury, we had to tape up. We taped up my ankle, which then made me run funny, which then gave me problems with my hamstring and then my quad. And then on the last day, my quad was so sore that I actually couldn't lift my knee off the ground to run. So I could run in the morning, but by the afternoon, yeah, I wasn't running anywhere. I was just walking. And after we stopped at lunch, I was like, great, I've got like about 70 kilometers to go and we're going to have to walk the whole way. And then we were just really unlucky. Like we had the wind behind us for the previous 11 days, but then we had a lovely northerly storm come in, which was delightful. And like the wind was just ridiculous. It was like averaging 30 miles an hour with then gusts of like 60 to 90 miles an hour. I was soaked through. I was having to we're trying to dry my kit to keep me as warm as I could, but they ran out of dry clothes. And then my lovely crew, they weren't lovely at this point, they gave me like socks to put on my hands, which turns out they were socks I'd worn the day before, which was pretty disgusting. I was just like, thanks guys. Yeah, and then it just got to a point where it was so gross. And it got to a point where I was so cold that I just got in the van and just like burst into tears because I didn't want to stop until I'd got to John O'Groats because I was so cold, but I just didn't know how I was gonna keep on going. But luckily we found one of those silver safety blankets, which they were like, just try it, just put it on. So I did. And then 5 minutes later I was warm. So then I was like, right guys, we're going through the night. So yeah, it was emotional, but I just wanted to finish. I was like, I'm not going to bed for another night.
Yeah. And also at that point, like, it's just about one foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah.
You knew the end was in sight. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it was just about putting one foot in front of the other. I remember complaining to you about the winds when we were in the Peak District last weekend, and then you telling me the story, and I was like, oh, yeah,
no, one of the peaks was windy.
Slightly different. And flip it on its head, the best bit, the last 14 seconds.
No, like the end, because in my head I was like, yeah, I'm going to be like Usain Bolt, I'm going to run into the finish, and then you like walk into the finish, you touch the pole, you're like, I just want to go to bed, I want to get these it was rubbish, like everyone was like, oh, this is amazing, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like you're so overwhelmed that it's just not cool. But yeah, two best moments, well there was lots, but there was a point we were about 2 hours north of Edinburgh, and one of my friends, Fee, drove all the way from Edinburgh to come and find me to deliver me a cupcake. She literally bought me a cupcake and then went back home again. I'm like, you're a legend.
Oh,
and it was such a good cupcake. I think it was salted caramel. It was delicious.
Oh, amazing.
And then running over the Pentlands, which was just amazing. I think the guys in my team were a little bit worried because they were like, oh my God, like her legs are in a state and now she's going to have to run on this trail. But all of a sudden there was no cars, it was sunset, it was quiet, it had stopped raining, and the ground was so soft, like running on it, it was just, yeah, like that was pretty magical.
It felt really nice, I bet, especially because that's the thing is that I think a lot of people don't realise is that LEJOG is primarily road, right? So it's pretty tough on the old legs from an impact perspective, and also you, as much as we sometimes wish for a road when we're on really technical trail, it is a lot kinder on the legs, especially over distance. So you know, just another thing to add to the tough feet. Okay, we've talked a lot about LEJOG, and I'm sure you're not sick of talking about it yet, but I'm sure there'll come a point where you will. Let's look past LEJOG. You've recently set up your own coaching platform, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm doing, it's kind of two-pronged. So running coaching for people that, literally want to do anything from 5K to, we've got coaching a couple of people who want to do LEJOG, which is awesome. So helping them get there on that journey. So that's pretty exciting. And I'm really enjoying working with like a whole range of runners, from like complete beginners to people that have done it for ages. For me, I like having that mixed ability of people because it keeps me thinking of different ways to help people train. And then I've just launched a strength conditioning and yoga platform for runners, because I know, and I'm like you do as well, because I see you do a lot of strength, like how important like strength and conditioning is for runners. But we are all, like, I am guilty of it as well, like really lazy at being like, oh, I don't want to do strength, I don't want to do stretching, I'd rather be outside running. But so I've tried to make sessions that are 2 30-minute sessions a week, because I also know runners' attention spans, mine included, is about big. So I'm like, short, sharp sessions that people can do online, at home, anytime. And I hope it will just give everyone that bit of a balance to their running training and stop those injuries happening and make them stronger and faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely an area that's being given more attention now, but it's definitely still needs a little bit more spotlight. You know, I think and I hold my hand up, and people always say, you know, how are you so motivated to train all the time? I'm like, well, mostly I am, but if I ever had to skip a session, it would be a strength session as opposed to a run. Like the run would always get priority, because I like being outside and I like running. I don't understand the value of my strength and conditioning. And my coach, if he's watching this, which he probably is probably wincing right now at the thought of me skipping out one of the sessions he sets me, which I don't do, I promise, Brad. But he knows as well as I do that running is always takes priority. But it's so key to bulletproof the body, because running is such a high impact sport. I'm suffering from a bit of a niggle at the moment, which I'm incredibly grumpy and sulky about. But strength training can really, as she says, prevent these types of injuries, and helps you stay on top of ensuring the body is strong enough to take all the impact. So very excited to see that kind of roll out, and we'll direct people to where they can find you, in case anybody has any questions or queries about that as well. So I think we've probably touched on it a little bit, but one of the questions that came in was, what is it that motivated you to set up this platform?
Yeah, so it was that I could see that it was a gap, especially in people that I was training, that people just weren't doing. And also, like, I love yoga, and I've been doing yoga for about 8 years now. But for me, I found it really frustrating when I'd go to a yoga class, and I'm there because I want to be a better runner, and then the yoga teacher makes me do a headstand or tries to get me to wrap my leg around my head, and I'm like, I can't do it. And I found, for me, it was like really frustrating, because I would have to just sit there. They would give you something else to do, but you're like leaning forward, they're like, touch your toes, you're like, yeah, I'm trying. So I was just like, if I can do yoga, like how runners actually move, and try and make it so it is a runner that's giving the session, hopefully, you know, showing the other guys like in the group that, you know, we can't move in that way, but there's other things that we can do. And also, as a runner, you do want some like tension in your muscles. That's actually what makes you run faster. So it's getting that balance right between having almost tight muscles, but also flexible to give you a range of movement to run quicker. So yeah, hopefully combining the two will help everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I think I completely agree with you. I've been to, like, I actually go to a fantastic yoga studio in Wandsworth, and they are super understanding. She knows me very well. She knows I'm a runner, so she always is very good at just being like, you're good, like, you do you.
Yeah.
Like, and she runs kind of specific like hip opening classes that I absolutely love. But I've been to a number of studios where they just can't comprehend why you can't touch your toes, or you know, why. The worst one is when you have to like open up your legs and reach forward. Like I just can't go. I'm literally like barely, my fingertips barely touch the ground, and these people like their whole chest on the floor. I'm like, how have you done that?
I know. So like when you've got the granny next to you who's like turned into a pretzel, I'm like, how are you doing that?
But ask them to run Land's End on a Gross, and I bet they there you go. And again, something that we've sort of very briefly touched on, but what are the most common mistakes you see, not even just clients, but people that you know make when they're training for these big types of endurance events?
I think a lot of it is doing too much too soon. Like you do have to build up to doing something like LEJOG. Like for me, I've been doing longer and longer stuff, and it's probably been a process over 5 years of getting to the point where I could do it, and all the running that I've done in like the 20 years before that. So you do have to build up, but you know, you can do it if you've got that belief in yourself and it's something that you want to do. There you can put a plan in place to get there. And when you're starting off running as well, like you wouldn't even comprehend doing something like LEJOG because it's so ridiculously big. But as you build up to it, and you know, you start doing multi-day stuff, you know, like the Ultra X stuff, and the guys finish that and they're like, oh my God, I've done 250K in like 4 days. Like that's epic. Yeah. It then gives you that belief to know you can do something longer. Yeah. So I think you do have to have that gradual build up. And if you're not sure how to do that, definitely finding a coach who can help program that for you, because you don't want to start training and then get injured or start overtraining, which, you know, overtraining can lead to so many different issues. Yeah. And then, yeah, strength and conditioning, you know, putting that in. And, you know, when you're doing this long stuff, the biggest components of it are fueling. So you have to start practicing your fueling and nutrition strategy when you're training, because your body needs to get used to eating on the run. And I know a lot of people say, oh, but I can't eat and run. The more you practice it, the more you'll be able to do it. So yeah, practicing that sort of stuff.
just training your gut, isn't it? You know, like
Yeah.
I definitely used to be really bad at it, and then I just did it all the time. Like literally every training run I went out on before the
Yeah.
desert, take something that I was gonna have, even if it was literally like 6K. I'd just have something mid run and just get used to it.
Yeah.
We found ice buns the other day, which worked
Yeah.
very well. If I must say so myself.
But ice buns are perfect because they're like high in carbs and they've
Yeah,
got that sugar hit and they taste delicious.
yeah, so good. Okay, my boyfriend, I was like, "These are the best things ever." He was like, "Have you never had one of those before?" I was like, "Yes, I have. But they were great running fuel." I was so excited about it. And again, kind of following on nicely, and someone asked, "How did you get into extreme running events or distances?"
So the first, yeah, I was training for a marathon and I was really enjoying the running. And then all of a sudden, I started to see people talking about mountain running. And I was like, oh, that's quite cool. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Switzerland for a holiday and go and run in the mountains. And I found this race called the Matterhorn Ultrax. So I've never been to the mountains before. And I thought it was a really good idea to book a week's holiday to go there and finish off the week with this run. But it was like incredible. I just rented a little Airbnb and then just spent each day with a packed lunch in my bag, like running to the top of a hill, sitting there, eating my lunch, looking at the mountains, running up and down the hills, and then finishing off with the race was quite nice because it kind of combined like the training and racing and adventure element. And going to somewhere like Switzerland was quite good because I went on my own and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But the trails are like so well marked. Like
Yeah.
there is like directional arrows at every junction that you get to. There's maps of all the different routes. So it kind of, yeah, it kind of took out that like, oh my God, I'm like completely out of my depth. It took a little bit of pressure off because I had a little route that I could follow and it wasn't actually as scary as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. And then the following, oh no, it was actually a couple months later, I'd heard, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. But I didn't want to go and do the race because I was like, I can't run 100 miles in one go at that point. So I went and broke it down and I did it in 4 days, which was, it's still like one of the best things I've ever done, just with my backpack. Again, I just went on my own and then just stayed at little refuges along the way, which was, yeah, incredible. And again, the whole route is marked, so you can't really get lost, she says, although I did get lost. Only briefly. And there's so many other people doing it that you meet along the way, and you know there's people at the end of the day in the refuges that you can chat to, so it doesn't feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
And then yeah, they just kind of have built up from there, getting a little bit longer each time.
Right, and that's the way to do it, because also a lot of people go in so big and then kind of scare themselves out of anything in between, or the other way, they go so big and then they've got to keep building on top of this and on top of this and on top of this, and there comes a point where like how big do you have to go for it to then be like deemed impressive for them? And actually, you know, everyone's impressive is so very different. Will have a tendency to kind of then lose sight of why they really started it. They just more and more and more and more and more extreme, and that's not always the best way to do it, because you kind of reach an end point and then you're a bit stuck. She says. Okay, final question. Also, I have to say, on the getting lost thing, this is coming from the lady who, with me last week, we managed to go the wrong direction for like 8 miles before we realized.
We were like, are we going the right way? No, we're not.
No, completely the wrong direction, but we made it, so it's all good. So tell us, what is next?
Yeah, so I actually this week have started to plan my whole like racing adventure calendar for next year, because I've just decided that the world is going back to normal and I'm going to plan all my races.
I like
yeah, otherwise it's just depressing, like waiting. So yeah, I asked people for some suggestions the other day and there's like so many, like it's epic. So yeah, some things that I want to do next year is I really want to try and qualify for the World 24-hour team and 50K team for the World Champs. No idea if I'll get selected, but I'm going to try my hardest to. I want to do the GR10, which is a mountain route. That's going to be more of an adventure, just me with my backpack, and it goes from the Atlantic to the Med across the Pyrenees. It's about 800 k's, so I'm going to do that probably in July. Hopefully the Ultra X World Champs, because that looks amazing. And after doing a bit of the Ultra X, like UK 125 route last week, I think I'd like to try that too. And it's like on our doorstep, like as you saw, like you can go up there for a day and it's amazing.
You can go up and back in a day, can't you? Yeah, because we did that.
And what are some other ones I looked at? Maybe one of the big what's it called, backyard ultra racing events, just for fun, just to see how far I can go. I tried to do my own one this year up and down my driveway, and it didn't really work because it was boring and I was running up and down the driveway. So an actual race will be cool.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing Mike Wardian did something similar. He ran a mile like for 24 hours, just continuing the same mile, which is bonkers. A friend of mine asked me actually about backyard ultra the other day, and I think I'd have to set myself like 200 miles or something. I have no idea if that's even feasible, but I'd have to set myself a number, because the idea of having no finish line or no ending is just, that's tough.
Yeah, and especially some guys did it last week and did 75 hours, like without sleeping. I'm like, how? Like, I love sleep. I'm like a 10-hour a night kind of girl, so I don't know how I would cope with that, but
I love sleep. I get crap from my boyfriend for it, but sleep is the one. I get very grumpy when I don't have any sleep, so I think I'll have to reevaluate my chance to get around backyard ultra. But we'll make it work. Carla, it was so nice to chat with you and catch up, and hopefully looking forward to seeing you over the weekend, if not next weekend, for more miles, and also very excited to follow and watch your little new coaching platform grow, which I'm sure. And we're very excited to have you at the World Champs in England next year.
I know, it's going to be exciting.
Have a lovely rest of the afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.